So when anxiety strikes. This is the third instalment of my mini-series on anxiety, in which I'm going to give you some top tips for dealing with anxiety when it strikes, but also ultimate strategies to reduce the feedback loop that's creating the anxiety, as I described in the last article, Where Does Anxiety Come From? My name is Emma Triplett, and I'm a hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, and I've been helping people with anxiety and depression for over 9 years. Before I get down to it though, there's a vital piece of information that you need to understand, because everyone with anxiety makes this mistake. Anxiety is your flight-fight response system on high activation. If your brain believes you are in some sort of crisis, emergency or danger, it will strongly compel you to keep you alert of the danger and to get you away from it. The danger in this case of anxiety is perceived danger, or in other words, coming from your own negative thoughts, worrying and what-ifing. But nevertheless, your mind and body reacts just as if you'd run into a dangerous polar bear. So think of anxiety as a polar bear. Polar bears are very strong, much stronger than you, and have more stamina than you. So it's useless trying to fight a polar bear. You will never win. Nonetheless, people with anxiety fight it, and this is the mistake. However, you may not be stronger than a polar bear, but you are smarter, and therefore you don't fight anxiety, you outsmart it, and this is how. So, number 1, get up and move. Physically move yourself away from where you were when the anxiety hit, and go and do something. You can't focus your mind on not worrying. That's like me telling you to not think of a blue elephant. As soon as you've thought about it, it's there. So, whereas you can't think about not thinking about it, you can redirect your thoughts towards something positive and do something positive. Number 2, engage in active listening. When you have anxiety, the fight or flight part of your brain hijacks your imagination, so you can catastrophize and imagine everything that could go wrong, causing more anxiety. Ironically, people who are really good at imagining things, like creative people, they're the best at creating anxiety. But don't despair. You also have an amazing imaginative resource available to your intellectual brain, and to put it to good use, and you can redirect it in a positive way by active listening to audiobooks or podcasts. The difference between active and passive listening is that passive listening, such as the radio or music, can be done unconsciously or subconsciously. So your conscious brain can drift off and worry about stuff. But active listening involves the imagination, the conscious brain, and the intellect all focusing on the same thing at the same time. And when you do this, you can't worry about things at the same time. So at those times when you're unable to get up and move or do something else, perhaps when you're driving or last thing at night when you're trying to sleep, you can listen to something else. So, long-term practice. Whatever you practice, you get good at, and that goes for worrying too. So if you want to not have anxiety, you have to stop practicing it. And that means doing something different. Number 1, change your routine. Your primitive fight or flight response will want you to do the same thing day in, day out. It has learned that your daily routine is safe, and so it believes an effective survival strategy is to do the same thing, despite the high alert danger all around you in the form of your anxious thoughts. However, that daily routine will be full of unconscious associations and triggers. So in order to interrupt the pattern of the vicious cycle, you need to do something different. It doesn't matter how small these things are. It might be as simple as changing the order you do things at home, or calling in to see a friend for a cuppa on the way home. But every time you do something new or different, you're re-educating your mind that the world is not as dangerous as you've led it to believe, and it will start to relax slightly. Exercise. I'm sure you've heard this one before, but exercise really does help. Not only does it burn off the adrenaline your body's producing from being in a constant fight or flight, but perhaps more importantly, exercise creates serotonin, which helps you to cope, motivates you, makes you braver, and helps you cope with physical fear. In addition, studies in animals have shown that exercise also creates a growth hormone called BDNF, which generates new cells in the hippocampus and reverses any damage done by excess cortisol produced by anxiety. Number 3, slow down. Another common mistake is to keep yourself too busy. Being busy can distract your thoughts from the scary ones, so it's understandable that anxious people are always on the go. But this in itself can mistakenly lead the brain to believing there is some sort of crisis on the go constantly. If you have anxiety, it is important to learn how to relax, slow down, and just be. Meditation can help with this, but studies have also shown that being in nature is extremely effective. So go for a leisurely walk in nature. Find a river or a field to sit in, listen, breathe, and just be. It's amazing how therapeutic that is when you just take the time out to do it. If you can't do that, have a soak in the bath without a deadline. Number 4, develop awareness. Anxiety comes from negative thinking, but much of the anxious people are not aware of the constant negativity going through their mind. They've become so used to trying to ignore it that it's just going on in the background. Become aware of the thoughts and step out of them instead of into them. By separating yourself from the thoughts and seeing them as an object, something your brain is doing instead of it being part of you, gives you control back. All thoughts are transient. They come and they go. So when you can objectify the thoughts, you can learn how to let them come through and go. Shutting them out will only make them shout louder. That's fighting them again. Allow them in, through and out of your mind, and they will lose their power. And finally, belief. The world around us is created by our belief, good or bad. Learn to relax with the anxiety, believing it will pass, and it will. I know that sounds idealistic and perhaps unrealistic if you've had anxiety for a long time. But when you combine your own belief with the strategies that allow the anxiety to fade away, like I've described above, you have the power to outsmart it. If you have your own strategies for outsmarting anxiety that work for you, please share. I'm sure some others on that path will find them really helpful. And if you'd like to learn more about anxiety and depression and how to deal with them, hit subscribe below and turn on notifications and you won't miss anything. See you next time.